Similar to the onboarding experience, the client and the clinician both have roles and expectations following an intensive experience. A quality aftercare program will help ensure ongoing client success, as well as support your client's impression of the intensive experience itself. As part of the third day's itinerary, I often work with my clients to develop their aftercare plan, but this can also be completed during a post-intensive review session. You will collaborate with your client to establish a comprehensive aftercare plan, providing them guidance on self-care, coping strategies, and any ongoing support they might need to continue the therapeutic work. Perhaps you and your clients are intentional in the intensive to have a task list entitled Future Work for Aftercare. Where as you go along, you cite specific topics for future work or unfinished business. You and your client can both acknowledge areas that might need to be addressed down the road, but maybe they aren't ready or you don't have time. There are examples that you could use like empty chair work, working through resentments or amends work, doing experiential exercises, or perhaps offering EMDR. There are lots of things that you can do, but you want to have the opportunity to look towards aftercare as a way and means to follow up. Beyond the intensive, you will want your client to schedule a follow-up session shortly after the intensive to review the experience, discuss insights they've gained, address immediate concerns or questions, anything else that might need to be handled. This gives your client some time and distance to process and reflect on the experience they had and the impact it's had on their well-being. You can accomplish this in several ways. You could have a feedback form, a phone call, a Zoom consultation, or even an actual session if these are local in-state clients. Remember, you're tailoring your intensive experience, so there's a variety of options here depending on the client or the case sensitivity and complexity, but we want to make sure that you are finding ways to connect with your client in between their intensive and their future aftercare. Following the review session or consultation, you will want to create a post-intensive assessment to evaluate their progress, determine the effectiveness of the intensive, and identify any ongoing therapeutic needs. Personally, I just add these notes to the bottom of my intensive session record under the heading Considerations for Future Aftercare. Certainly, if you would like to create a more formal assessment process and tracking, you may. If you utilize practice software for your notes, this could be a good place to create a general note template for post-intensive feedback and considerations. It doesn't have to be expansive, but again, you're just considering what you might need to do and work on with your client in future aftercares. This is also a great way to gain overall feedback from your clients and their intensive experience. Some of the feedback you gain will be specific to your client, and other feedback may be beneficial to you, just related to your overall intensive strategy. So having a place for evaluations and general feedback will be very helpful. This next part is for the client, learning about their integration of insights. Clients are expected to reflect on and integrate the insights that they've gained during the intensive into their daily life, which includes applying their newly acquired coping skills and self-awareness as they navigate everyday challenges. If it's appropriate for your practice, you may want to schedule follow-up therapy sessions with your client or refer them to a traditional local therapist if they aren't already working with one to address any emerging issues and support their own growth. With my clients, I have always had a practice of scheduling their aftercare at the intensive so that when I'm with them, we have on the schedule when I plan to see them again. I always give them the flexibility to shift or change that if they need to, but that way we make sure we have a tentative plan before they leave on when we hope for them to return for their next aftercare. Your client needs to understand that an intensive experience is not a 3-day cure. It doesn't automatically fix their lives or their situations, but rather intensives are intentionally outside of their regular routine. Obviously, if you've recommended ongoing therapy sessions, your client ought to engage in those sessions on a regularly scheduled basis to ensure continued progress along their healing journey. 2 other important considerations I'd like to suggest. First, make sure you have the proper releases signed at the initial intensive for any other collaborative clinicians, explaining to your client your desire to work with them as a team to support their overall treatment goals. You can also explain they will need to provide a release for those clinicians as well. Secondly, and this is very important, Be sure to let clients know up front that it is not your desire to replace other clinicians they're working with. While it's always the client's decision ultimately who they choose for their treatment, you want to let them know up front this is a professional boundary for you. Referrals from other clinicians will be very beneficial for you. And if other clinicians suspect you might be poaching their clients, they would be less likely to refer to you. Having something stated in writing can certainly help clarify your intentions with clients and referring clinicians. Typically, I connect with referring clinicians prior to the initial intensive to outline goals and boundaries. For clinicians that are shared with me at the intensive, I connect with them immediately following the intensive. That point of contact may be a phone call or an email. In some cases, it may be deferred if the client prefers confidentiality or an opportunity to discuss with the outside clinician first. In any case, be sure to address this important issue and solidify your preferred methods of contact. To provide you extra support, be sure to check out our course download for post-intensive follow-up with a clinician and our email template for the verbiage I personally use to let other clinicians know my policy for collaboration. You'll also be able to access a clinical template for how I outline this for clients in my pre-intensive paperwork. Immediately following the intensive, make yourself available for any questions, concerns, or crises that may arise. This is a vulnerable time for most clients, and they might need the person who just helped them navigate some rough waters. Provide your clients with your contact information for emergencies and the best way to reach you. Even if you're not your client's traditional therapist or local clinician, you will want to monitor your client's progress with some degree of regularity, checking in with them every once in a while to adjust their treatment goals and interventions as needed, based on the post-intensive assessment. This is also an opportunity for you to invite them back for any additional intensive work that they might benefit from. This does not mean that you have to do sessions in an ongoing fashion or all the time, but rather you just want to have touch points with your client and outline ahead of time what your intentions are for future care. Your clients might need encouragement to maintain a line of open communication with you, so encourage them to report any significant changes, challenges, or successes that they experience after the intensive. As I mentioned, coordinating referrals. Following their experience, if you recommend additional support services such as group therapy, support groups, or other specialized resources that are aligned with your client's needs, you will need to coordinate those referrals. Encourage your client as a part of their aftercare plan to prioritize self-care practices and activities that promote their emotional well-being. Things such as mindfulness, relaxation techniques, and other strategies that they've learned throughout the intensive. In addition to the post-intensive assessment of your client, you should also invite your client to give you feedback on the intensive experience. This open communication can help you make adjustments and improvements to your therapeutic approaches. Beyond the initial post-intensive assessments, you may want to issue follow-up assessments or evaluations to track your client's progress and adjust their treatment plan as needed. Personally, I have several assessments that I give to my clients every time I treat them. For example, they complete a full battery of intake assessments prior to the initial intensive. Then I have a selected few they take again on the morning of the first day of their 3-day intensive, and again at every aftercare session. These are scored and charted into my session notes in a graph format so I can track my client's progress over the course of treatment. Some general assessments I utilize are depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, just to name a few. These will be personalized for your clientele should you choose to do something similar. Here is an example of what that looks like in my notes. As intimately as you get to know your clients in these intensive experiences, we all need to maintain thorough documentation and reporting for every client. Document and report progress, changes, or challenges that you observe during the post-intensive follow-up and maintain accurate records to inform their ongoing treatment planning.